absolutely delighted to introduce you to Pat Rynard and Liz Fleming, who are the folks behind this new initiative called Creator Corps. And we're talking about one of the newest efforts to strengthen local journalism and support independent creators. Hold on a second. I got more people in the waiting room I want to let in. Hard to do when I'm multitasking here. Here we go in middle. Okay, apologize. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Pat, why don't you begin and tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to this line of work. First, before you get started, Pat, I was living in Florida several years ago, and I stumbled upon your podcast, and I loved your podcast. It was the first place. It was the first place I was introduced to Rob Sand.
Nice.
You did a great interview with him, and I thought, this is a fabulous way to utilize modern day technology, no barrier to entry. And here I am interested in Iowa politics, and I stumbled onto this rising young star in the party. And so that was my first introduction to you and to Rob Sand. So you've been at this a while because that was during COVID. Tell us about you and then introduce us to Liz, if you would.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, it's great to see all of you, including some familiar faces and some not so, but or at least I recognize a lot of the names. But hey, I'm Pat Rynard. I have worked in Iowa politics for about 23 years, politics and journalism for about 23 years now. I'm originally from mid-Missouri, came up here for school at Drake and then stuck around afterwards. Spent about a decade working on Democrat campaigns, mostly state legislative ones, and some presidential caucus campaigns. And then 12 years ago, it's been 12 years now, I launched Iowa Starting Line. It's kind of seeing that there was a niche to be filled in some of the online spaces here in the state of kind of a professionalized media operation there. Grew it out during the 2019 caucus, 2020 caucus to 6 full-time staff, sold it to Courier Newsroom a year or two after that. Courier Newsroom, if you're not aware, has they're up to almost 20 like Iowa Starting Line like outlets in different states. I was their national politics editor for a few years, and then I was really burned out. So I took last year largely off, was going to go back, spent 3 months around Europe, and then ended up with this new opportunity with this Iowa Creator Corps near the end of last year. And got Liz on board real quick for obvious reasons. I'll kick it over to her now.
Yeah,
Thanks, Pat.
yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Oh, and thank you, Julie. My name is Liz Fleming. I am a born and raised Iowan who talks about Iowa nonstop now for a living. But I'm originally from Dubuque, Iowa. My whole family's still there. All those good Irish Catholic folks. I've got like a billion relatives and still go back to visit all the time. But I found myself, like many people in the pandemic, feeling kind of lonely, a little disheartened and seeking community. So I started posting on a new app called TikTok at the time, which of course now is fairly well known and widely used. But started posting about things that I thought were important. The way that Governor Kim Reynolds was handling COVID, the way communities were coming together for one another, things that I thought were interesting to me as an Iowan, I started putting out there for other people. And it turns out there were a lot of other people online looking for that representation and acknowledgement of what was going on in our state. So started posting as Liz from Iowa. That brand has stuck. And I say it's not just my name now, it's my whole personality. And it's allowed me to build a network and an audience of over 100,000 mostly engaged Iowans on TikTok that has carried over to Instagram and Facebook, which has been great. There are a lot of wonderful people in this state looking for what to do, looking for voices to listen to and conversations to have. So I'm really proud to be Liz from Iowa and to facilitate that and to get information to people. I am, oh, I'm Pat Fleming was my grandfather, and Tim is my uncle. So my dad is Dan. He's the baby of the family. But yeah, I've got a lot of great radio people and teachers and just great people in my family. So that thank you for that call out. Yeah, I've got family in Mason City. But super proud to be Liz from Iowa. Super proud to be working with Pat on this project where we empower other people across the state to tell their stories and to talk about what's going on in their communities and really shed a light on what's going on in this state and how people can take action and take notice. So I've been having the time of my life with this Iowa Creator Corps work. I know Pat echoes that sentiment. This is fun work. This is good work. And we need to be able to reach people and change minds in order to change the direction of this state. And I think the conditions are right for it. We've got some really great candidates. We've got a lot of good energy and a lot of great things working for Iowans. And we're just going to keep going and keep doing this work because it matters and it's important.
So Liz, tell us about your background. Did this just kind of fall in your lap, or did you want to follow in your ancestors' footsteps in terms of journalism and radio and
No. So I grew up in Dubuque and I got my MBA from the University of Dubuque back in like 2018. I worked in some marketing and some finance jobs, but nothing really like that. I wasn't really that passionate about anything in that sort. Made the great escape to Madison, Wisconsin in December of 2019. By March of 2020, I was pushed back to Dubuque, and I think that was fate. I'm meant to be in Iowa, and that's okay. But really, I never set out to have an online presence or to do this work. I had no journalism background. I've always been a decent writer. I've always liked writing and communicating in that way. But no, this kind of fell into my lap, and I take it as a very important responsibility to my community and to others. So I've stepped into the role and have become a journalist by doing. But it's been a really incredible journey.
what surprises you about what you've learned so far?
I think what surprises me is just how many people are doing this work and are trying to make progress in our communities, and a lot of the stories that go untold. Um, Even just getting to meet people, whether online, receiving messages from people across the state who want to know more about something or want to highlight something that's happening in their neck of the woods. There's just so much to cover and so much doesn't get covered. So I think just the overall enthusiasm for telling stories and forging a better future in this state, it's been amazing and surprising in some ways.
Thank you, Liz. And we'll go back and forth, and then what's going to happen is I'll open it up to people on the call, and they'll have questions too, I'm sure. But Pat, tell me how this works as a business. How does Liz get paid? How do you get paid?
Yeah. So it's very much like Iowa Starting Line to a decent amount, where there's just a lot of fundraising involved, both from just good liberal progressive donors who want to make sure that these kind of things exist and exist as like again like a professionalized operation where you have full-time staff who can do all the different aspects of it, recruit all the creators or reporters or whatever else. Then there's various organizations that will help who want to run a certain program in the state. Say they want to, they want people better informed about reproductive rights. So one of the beats of a reporter or some creator or something is about that. Or sometimes advertising, but not too much. I'm glad that you like the podcast, although I always tell people I just did the podcast because it was another place to put ads and to bring in a little bit more revenue. But that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do to make sure that all of this stuff actually sticks around and is funded. The Starting Line was great because we were able to hire on like a bunch of young up and coming reporters here in the state that are very talented and actually pay them pretty decent. And with this thing, it currently run through a C3 where we'll have a C4 and C3 organization here, as well as we do a little bit of consulting work as well. And there's just finally, there is a lot of liberal and progressive donors and orgs that realize the importance of reaching people on social media. So, like, creators and influencers is the big thing that everybody is trying to figure out right now. How do you use local community-based uh, creators just talking to their fellow neighbors or people in their state about issues that matter to them? Because right now, at least, those are seen as some of the most authentic and relatable messengers out there, because they're not part of an organization, because they're not, this or that, or part of a party. They're just a person who's like you that just likes to talk about what they care about online.
Our model is different in that I sought out either current or retired journalists, each of whom have their own independent Substack column. And I never asked anybody's political perspective when I invited them to join the collaborative. It's turned out most are somewhat progressive. But I'm interested in your model because there's no question that you are funded by and supported by, and you have an audience of progressive Democrats and independents. So it's a different bag altogether, and yet we share one thing in common, and that's that there are lots of stories that aren't getting covered, and that's what we're all trying to do, I think. Tell me what your thoughts are on the state of legacy media, and where are people in Iowa getting their news and information today?
Yeah. I mean, the state of legacy media is in a pretty bad spot, obviously. That's not news to anybody out there. The circulation numbers, especially print circulation numbers, are just abysmal when you look at them. I want to say the Gazette is down to like 20 or 30 or 20,000. The Register is in the 30 to 40,000. That's not the digital subscriptions, obviously, but on that front. And it's just like that. That's just not how people, the vast majority of Iowans, are getting their news anymore. Most of it is whatever pops up in their social media feeds on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. Is where they're not necessarily even intentionally going to get news. It's just how they're getting informed, and so like are those traditional outlets still incredibly important when it comes to informing Iowans and covering Iowa politics and keeping people accountable? Yes. And those are very useful, and they do still have a devoted readership. It's not enough people reading it anymore or following it to really have the impact that that kind of journalism that you would want to have. And so that's one of the big things that I have always focused on with a lot of this work with Iowa Starting Line before and now this, which is the big thing I've been trying to solve over the past 12 years is like comms distribution or news distribution. You can have the best reported story, in-depth investigative story in the world, or on the political side of things, you can have the best message that will move people. But if it doesn't get in front of people, like what have you accomplished? There's only a few hundred people read it or see it, that kind of thing. When I launched Starting Line, it started out as like an political insider kind of publication, because it was during the 2015-2016 Iowa caucus. My goal there was to have a site that the national and state reporters would read because of the insider analysis. And then when I had a good story that like exposed something terrible that Joni Ernst had done or something, they would pick that up in larger outlets to be seen by more people. But after the 2000 election, it was just people aren't reading or watching those things anymore. So we switched to a social first approach. Did a lot more with infographics and quote cards and videos and everything on Facebook to just like reach people directly. And I asked them what their numbers were this year. As of a couple of weeks ago, Starting Line has published 2,900 pieces of content, reached 44 million impressions and 3.86 million engagements online. Their total social audience right now is 177,000, and they have an email audience of 42,000, which is a good deal.
Yep.
Our Iowa creators, the first cohort that we had got about a little over 1 million views on average per month from their videos. And we could tell that was largely staying in Iowa. So it's just figuring out where are people online and then figuring out who are the messengers and ways to get in front of them.
Were you disappointed in the low turnout among young voters in the last cycle in Iowa? Were you hoping there'd be more based on this extraordinary metrics that you're pumping out?
Yeah, for sure. And it's still a challenge of just getting people who finding ways to get them better connected to their community and the issues in their state. Because again, they're not always getting that information popping up in their feeds. A lot of them get sucked into more nationalized, hyper-partisanized bubbles and those kind of things. And so a lot of what we're doing is just trying to make more local Iowa-based content to kind of pull them back into the issues and things that are affecting them the most in their state, in their city, so that they're more engaged with elections that way.
Okay, let's open it up to folks on the call. And what I'll do is, if there are any members of the Iowa Writers Collaborative, I'll go to them first. And Chuck, I see you're on the call, so why don't you start, and then we'll just keep going there. Barry will be next. And anybody else who has their hand up, we'd love to have you involved in the conversation. Chuck.
Well, hi, Pat and Liz. I'm fascinated by this new venture you've got going. So where is it, web-based? Is it Substack-based? Where is it?
So our creators are, we call them all creators. Content creators are people who produce video content and put it out there. So we have creators kind of sprinkled across the state, and they are largely putting their content out on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Mostly TikTok and Instagram, but Facebook and Instagram are housed under the same like Meta corporation. So that works well for cross-posting, but we also have Substackers. We also have people who create podcasts, but they're not just on one platform typically. So they spread the love throughout.
Go ahead, Pat.
I said I'll drop our website there, iowacreatorcore.com, and right near the top we have some video examples from our first cohort, just little super cuts of each people's videos. That will give you a really good idea of kind of what this looks like. But yeah, we focused the most on TikTok and Instagram, largely because, especially on TikTok, like you can blow up really fast. Even if you're only starting out and you might only have like 500 followers on there, if you put out a good video that has a good hook to it, that's just really interesting, it can blow up to 10,000, 20,000 people quite easily.
And and is most of what the Creator Core is distributing, is it videos? I mean, it's not written stuff, it's videos.
Yes, it's largely video content. Those are favorable pieces of content for the applications that people are on. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't read very much anymore. We're trying to lower as many barriers as possible to getting information to people on free platforms with explainers.
I mean, I think we've learned that in the Iowa Writers Collaborative too. I mean, we have a lot of readers. Maybe our audience skews a little older, but we do have a lot of readers, I think, except those among us who are savvy with media or with video and podcasts. I mean, their numbers are really escalating, and some of us old dogs who are just mainly writing aren't getting there. So I know that's a reality. How many total people do you have now creator in the creator core? I'm sorry.
We're up to about 50 that we've trained. We've also been training 11 Iowa House candidates about how to improve their social media. We hope to have about 100 people go through the program by the end of summer. This is a good opportunity then to say, and let me copy and paste this thing. Where to go? One of the upcoming trainings that we'll be doing, probably starting in late July, maybe early August, is more of like a beginner one for folks who want to learn how to make video and test it out on there. We've had actually some good success as long as you're kind of outgoing and personable and can figure out just a little bit of it. You can actually do pretty well. I mean, Bob Leonard had not done any kind of video stuff before, and his TikToks are doing quite well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's fascinating. And I could tell Tim Fleming stories from now to the 1 o'clock, and I would only get started. So Liz, you can convey that message to him, but I will let up and let others get involved in the conversation.
Thank you.
That's always the talking point when I hear about a member of my family. I could tell you stories. I'd love to hear them sometime.
So Liz, if it's okay, I'd love to have you share any videos. Can you do that? Can you share some of your content if I turn on share capability?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
I think it'd be fun to see some of the things you've been doing.
Certainly. Let me make sure I'm set up on my end.
In the meantime, Pat, what are your goals for this?
Well, the big structural goal is to just get as many more talkers out on Iowa social media as possible, because a lot of these folks were either lifestyle creators, they were talking about sports, they were talking about family stuff, they were talking about history. So just getting like a lot more Iowa-based content. Basically, I always tell candidates and folks, like, think of a 25-year-old Casey's gas station clerk in Oline, Iowa. Like, what did you do today that at least has a chance of getting in front of them? And the way to get in front of folks that age, for the most part nowadays, is on TikTok or Instagram. And so, like, having enough pieces of content out there to pop up there is the kind of short-term goal. The long-term goal is just to continue to build more long-term progressive infrastructure in the state through stuff like this, to continue to talk with these creators over the years, months, and to keep getting information out there for them to put out.
Okay, here's Liz.
Yes. So I have a wide variety of stuff that I put out there. Some of it is local, like talking about Crow, which is a towing company in Des Moines that everyone has beef with. Here is a bit that I did. I was collaborating with another organization who wanted to speak more on Ashley Hinson and her history. So here's a video that I did for them.
I just heard something that is enough to make any Iowan angry. While we are
Can you hear the
dealing with
audio?
rising costs and one of the highest cancer rates in the country, Congresswoman Ashley Hinson backed a Chinese-owned pesticide linked to cancer and then opposed efforts to regulate that pesticide. In addition to protecting pesticide manufacturers, Ashley Hinson has continuously attacked our healthcare. And
so lots of stuff like that, but also everyday stuff like going to the grocery store and just talking about how prices have gone up.
So I'm at the grocery store right now, and I know that everything's really expensive, and I know that everything's really expensive, but it's kind of nuts to just look in and see that orange juice is like $5 for half a gallon.
Again, not the most eloquent speak, but everyday speak that maybe people will pay attention to. Or I was on the ground for Rob Sands' rally. Here is the content that I captured there.
Do you have a compilation one of the sand, the sheer thing?
I should find that.
Is it
I think I may have posted that.
How would you rate your efforts in this regard to the Republican candidates? Is there much activity in Iowa?
The activity that I see, and this might just be my own algorithm showing me what I see, I'm not seeing very much organic content coming from people who support Republican candidates, from everyday people anyway. I mean, every once in a while I will see a post from what appears to be a bot account on Facebook, like hyping up one of the candidates. I see a lot of that kind of activity where it doesn't seem to be coming from a genuine, actual Iowan. So I do think this is a place where the left or progressives have a leg up on conservatives in this state.
No, for sure. And it's something that we want to really drive home with what we're doing, because this kind of stuff, where things spread by organic means as opposed to like by doing paid ads, anybody can always come in near the end and spend millions on paid ads, but they're not as effective as your neighbors, talking through and giving really good videos and stuff about how these things are. Oh yeah, they're that Iowa Creator Core one. This was fun.
No audio yet.
Oh,
I think you just need to turn it up on the thing there. But anyway, I'll narrate.
anything?
Yeah, keep going up. Keep putting the bar.
I make sure that when I can't personally feel things, that I'm talking to people who can.
What advice would you have to the next governor for Iowa who's facing an over $1 billion budget shortfall?
Budgets aren't just numbers, they're a values document.
We're here with Governor Beshear for his pitch check.
Not only does the Daniel Boone work anywhere you are, the only time this governor was ever asked to be a vote, it's Jack.
We are potentially going to elect a Democratic governor. Any advice for the guy?
We think about bipartisanship a lot, but that means there's some deal that's made. I think we ought to think about nonpartisanship. Like a job isn't red or blue. A bridge isn't Democrat or Republican.
Think about it this way. We spend 80% of our time on things that matter to 100% of our families. We don't move the state or the country to the right or the left. We just move it more for everyone leaving.
Anyway, that was a really great example of some of the events that we've gotten our creators to come out to. Part of this is just creating like a fun community, much like you all have with this collective, to just like get them excited, keep them involved. One of the most rewarding and fulfilling aspects of this program is that we've gotten probably maybe close to a dozen folks who they care about Iowa politics, but they're not activists. They've never been out to an event. They don't go to county party stuff. And now that they've been a part of this, they're really excited. They really love going around and interviewing people. They're coming out to lots more events and everything like that. So that's been really good. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I hear wherever I go that the Iowa Writers Collaborative, especially out in rural areas, makes people feel less alone. And not only less alone, but more emboldened. So they might show up at a No Kings rally or they show up at a city council meeting or someplace, whereas in the past they wouldn't have. So I think there is what you say about community building really makes a lot of sense. Let's go to some of the folks on the call. William Staplin has his hand up. Barry Pyatt, I'd like to call on you after that if you have a question or a comment. Bill or Billy?
And Liz, and of course, thank you, Julie, for creating this platform. Quickly, how do you catch the wave before it happens? In other words, how do you catch the vibe before it becomes a vibe? Is that a dumb
I think that's something I'm still trying to figure out. I think we do our best as far as trying to capture the moment and speak to how people are feeling and really thinking about things. I live online, which is both bad and good, right? There are some terrible things about being online all the time, but also I get a good sense for what people are putting out there and how people are reacting to news, whether it's looking in a comment section or looking at original content that somebody else put out. I get a good sense for where people are or what people's main concerns may be. And I try to speak to that. We all try to speak to that and cover that.
Go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, being online, some of these places, especially TikTok and Instagram, were just I don't know, quote unquote, I guess, non-activists, non-hyper engaged people are, and seeing how they are reacting to stuff in real time before it bubbles up can be quite useful.
So, Pat, have we seen you up there doing a chicken dance or some of these things that seem to
go? No. See, that's what people think. Some people think TikTok is. There's really not that much of it. It's a great place just to communicate directly with people in some kind of videos that you showed. And sorry, I have to jump here in 1 minute. So let me quickly run through stuff here for Paul for that question. Well, the big reason why we focus on these places because on Meta, TikTok, is because it's from what we've seen is the best place to get out to get messages outside of your initial bubble. Stuff can blow up on Facebook. Stuff can really blow up on TikTok. Instagram does a halfway decent job at times if you've got a good public profile thing. And that's the big thing that we're always trying to figure out is like, how are we getting beyond our own kind of our own liberal or progressive or highly informed bubble, because that's always a challenge. Like making sure you're not just talking to the people who already agree with you. And so the way the algorithm works on those places is really good. That is not to say that this is the only approach, and we're actually building out a lot more social media and just other kind of programs, including like trying to come up with some ideas on Substack as well that I hope to circle back up with a lot of you in the future. And one quick plug, we are also this afternoon, I'm finishing up the fundraising proposal for it. But we look to hire like retired journalists to run community Facebook pages for their county or city, and have a little bit of money for that as well. So if anyone might be interested in that, shoot us an email. All right. Sorry, Liz. Let's see.
Sounds great. Pat, thanks for hopping on as long as you could today. We'll definitely have you back. And amazing what you're doing with all of the things that you have your fingers involved in. And thanks for being with us. Liz, you're going to carry the rest of the hour. So
I will do my best.
I'm sure you will be great. All right. Barry Pyatt. Barry Pyatt is a member of the Iowa Writers Collaborative, and he lives in Washington, D.C. He's been a press secretary for United States senators, now retired, but he's cranking out a great column on Substack. Barry, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to get a little clarification on something Pat said. He said you can always come in at the end of a campaign and spend a lot of money, but it's more effective when you hear it from your your friends and neighbors. And I've seen the difference a lot of money at the end of a campaign can make when it's showing up on people's TVs in their living rooms. And so I'm thinking he probably didn't mean that exactly literally. And so I'd like a little clarification, because I find it hard to believe that some TikTok videos are going to outweigh the impact of $1 million in last week advertising on television. The other question I wanted to ask is how much production is required in producing a video for these platforms? Can I do them just with my iPhone? Or do I need more equipment?
Totally. To answer your second question, totally. I started out just iPhone in hand, speaking into the camera, figuring out a few editing tools on the platform, and it was okay. Like people kind of expect that realness of feeling like they're just chatting with a friend on FaceTime, essentially. It doesn't have to be too big of production. It doesn't have to be too crazy. Of course, if you have the means and the materials and want to really zhuzh things up, I did end up buying like a light, so I have better lighting in my videos, but it doesn't have to be anything too wild or too high of production, which is kind of the cool thing about this democratized way of reaching and connecting with people online. To answer your first question, I believe Pat was specifically talking about social media content, which at the end of campaigns, typically, yes, people throw a bunch of money behind a couple of social media posts and hopefully they reach their target audience. But it seems kind of like a last minute, oh yeah, we got to reach these people. There is real value in developing storytellers and trusted messengers for communities. There's no reason why people should be listening to me, but apparently people like me. They like the way I talk about stuff. They like the way I present information to them, and I'm very glad that they do. It's to a point where people feel like they know me, and that's a bit creepy sometimes, but I also appreciate it because it does feel like they really trust what I'm saying, and they know that I'm in their community experiencing these things alongside them. In that way, a message coming from me versus coming from someone that nobody's ever seen before, maybe there's ad dollars behind it to reach them. It carries a little bit more weight. And that's really what we're trying to do with the Iowa Creator Corps, is creating more of those trusted messengers, establishing them as trusted communicators in their communities. So when there is information that needs to be passed on to their community or to their audience, it's expected that people trust these people already and value what they have to say. In the way that campaigns can tap into that and take advantage of that. I mean, I am a Josh Turek fan. I know Josh Turek personally from being up at the Capitol and having conversations with him. People, when it came time for the primary in June, they turned to me. And I mean, I've talked to both Josh and Zach Walls. People listened to the conversations I had with them and made their assumptions and informed their decisions that way. It gives a little bit more of a personal touch, but also a like trusted conversation taking place there.
Thanks. You know, Liz, I've often wondered how dollars get spent on campaigns these days. And, you know, human nature being what it is, there's probably a lot more that a consultant earns off of legacy media, especially television ads, than they would by doing something on TikTok or social media. Am I right about that? Does that impact how campaign dollars are spent, do you think?
I believe so. There is a really creative use of funds that can be put toward boosting or putting ad dollars behind social media content that already exists. Pat and I are working with 11 Iowa House candidates right now who are kind of on the bubble, right? They're not going to receive the big dollar amounts from the party or from other groups. We're kind of working with people who have a little bit of a social media presence, want to get better at communicating with people, and then offering them a little bit of ad spend, which to the tune of maybe $5,000 total, which in campaigns, I mean, that's a lot of money to me, but in campaigns, that's a drop in the ocean compared to what some campaigns are running. But that money behind a social media piece of content can be targeted exactly to their zip code that they're trying to reach. It can be targeted to certain personality types or interests that people have indicated on Facebook or Instagram. So it's a really smart usage of money that can be very targeted with its end audience. So instead of hitting people with a big ad spend on a TV ad, for instance, that maybe it's going to reach some people, maybe it won't. This is a kind of smaller scale way of reaching people with ad dollars.
Okay. Leslie Carpenter, I'm going to call on you. Is your microphone on? Are you ready to go?
Sure.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah. Liz, I've seen your content on TikTok. I think it's excellent. First of all, I wanted to say that.
Thank you.
I don't know how I'm getting it, but I'm getting it and I'm grateful for it. And I work in a space where it's very nonpartisan. I'm a mental health advocate. And one of the things that I'm getting ready to do is something that is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but needing to get out there and educate people in the center, in the right, and in the far left on an issue having to do with mental illness. And I'm wondering, is that something that you guys are also interested in helping people to do beyond the campaign kind of work?
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you for your work in the mental health space. It's an issue that does not get the funding or support that it needs, and everyone knows somebody who's affected by a mental illness. So thank you for your work, Leslie.
Amen.
Secondly, I think that's kind of the genesis of what we'd like to do. We want to be able to reach all Iowans, not just Iowans who already subscribe to progressive ideas or are already on board with concepts. And that's where the idea of having a variety of trusted messengers really helps. For instance, we have someone in our Iowa creator cohort named JT, and he online goes by the Iowa Investigator. And his role is talking about things that happen in Iowa, investigating, giving the history of Fort Madison, for instance, or this old factory that shut down in Clinton, Iowa. So really covering nonpartisan topics, but injecting truth and information in there. So If he were to talk about mental health, obviously I would have a more probably political way to talk about it, but he would talk about it by the numbers or talk about it by the personal effects, how it affects people personally in their communities or in their families. So there are ways of talking about things in a very nonpartisan way. I typically don't go that route because I know my audience, but someone like JT or someone like Maddie, who's also in our group, they have a wider audience. They have uh, more of a nonpartisan audience. So they're able to deliver that information in a really authentic way that still gets good information to people without turning them off because they think it's some liberal idea.
Great. Thanks, Leslie. Good question. So there may be some people on this call, Liz, who have never tried TikTok. Walk them through what to do to just put their toe in the water to discover. How would they find you, for example? How would they find StoryCorps? What do they need to do to sign up?
Yeah. So the really great thing about apps like TikTok and now Instagram and Facebook is they're really good at geolocating. So when I started posting about Iowa specifically, videos that I make about Iowa were being delivered to other Iowans. The algorithm, which no one quite has figured out, is very smart in the way that it's going to present to you relevant information about your community or a topic that you're interested in. So first and foremost, if you indulge and look at stuff about Iowa, I might come up on your page at some point. But secondly, I mean, posting on TikTok is not mandatory. Going on TikTok is something that you can do without really posting your own stuff out there. So whether you just want to scroll through and see what's out there, maybe get an idea of the conversations taking place there, I highly recommend signing up for a TikTok account, even if you don't want to post on it. But if you do want to post on it, the cool thing about TikTok is there are conversations already happening that you can chime in on. Whether it's my video where I talk about Medicaid cuts and how they're going to affect Iowans, people are able to comment on them or reshare my posts, or even it's called a stitch, where you take the first few seconds of my video, but then you add your own commentary on it, saying, Liz mentions here this, I would like to talk about this, and adding your own context or your own personal story. That's one of my favorite things about TikTok is that it can take a topic and turn it into a conversation, and people are able to voice their experiences, which is great. I love learning more about how people are actually experiencing policy. But you can also just go on there and create your own video from scratch. The tools are relatively easy once you get the hang of it. Like anything, there's a learning curve, but being able to really look into a screen, talk to yourself, but have an idea that you're talking to beyond yourself. You're talking to your community, you're talking to a friend. One thing I did learn from my grandpa Pat, who was a radio guy and passed this down to his kids and passed it on to me, is when you're speaking, speak like you're talking to a friend. You don't need to be nervous. Just act like you've done it before. Talk like you're speaking to a friend. Speak with that care and that realness that people expect from their friends. So I'm happy to do that. I hope anybody on this call who wants to give it a try is willing to do that too.
Makes so much sense. All right, let's see. Anybody else want to chime in and ask Liz a question? Tim Wagner, how are things in your neck of the woods? Are you on TikTok? If you would, turn on your mic and join the conversation. And then Bryce, I'll go to you.
Hi, Julie. No, I am not on TikTok, unfortunately, but this is just a fascinating conversation. And I'm just exploring all this stuff as we are talking about it. I'd like to at some point maybe pry a little further into this and see if there's an opportunity where I could provide some content at some point. So that's about all I have to offer today. I love this discussion, so thank you.
Yes, and Liz, I'd snap him up in a heartbeat because he's in the Decorah area, and not only is it a beautiful place to visit, but Tim has his thumb on the heartbeat of the community there. He'd be great. Bryce.
You know, I've listened to the business plan and the Pat and Liz you've laid out. Those of you who know me know that I have lamented the passing of the copy editor. Every time I see a business plan that's got 50 stringers, I'll call them the old, what they were, stringers, and trying to deal with the editing process. I want to know how that. I've seen some really bad stuff just from a journalism perspective of trying to tell a story and not doing it very artfully and so forth and so on, relying on sources that haven't been vetted. Talk to me a little bit about how you control the task of the copy editor, and you know what I'm talking about, I think, is what goes in, not just have you spelled everything right, but somebody makes decisions about content. How do you do that in this media?
So we are very fortunate in the aspect that we have some really great folks who want to be a part of our program. They're all volunteers, unpaid, telling their own stories or the stories of their communities. We have a Slack channel, which is pretty much a messaging platform where we can all collaborate on ideas, or if somebody needs help, they don't quite know how to talk about this issue, there are other people there in our community that are willing to step up. Are we all professionals? No. Are we all trying our best? Yes. We have some very gifted storytellers. We have some very gifted speakers in our group, and we try to build up that capacity by building up one another. So there might be somebody in Dyersville, Iowa, who wants to talk about data centers, and they want to talk about what's going on in their community, but they're shy. They haven't done this before. Maybe they're new to this. The good thing about the Creator Core is that we have weekly calls where we train them on how to frame themselves in the camera, how to create a really interesting first few seconds of the video so people will want to stick around and listen to the rest of the message. We provide sources, we provide resources, whether that's, hey, did you see this post in the Des Moines Register this morning? Did you read this in the Telegraph Herald? We will present information and sources to people. We don't go farther than that. And we're definitely encouraging them to check their sources, check their resources on that as well. So if there is an idea that gets tossed out there where it seems like this doesn't really seem like reliable information, or is this really happening, we will check each other on that. But that hasn't really come up. Most of the information that we're sharing within the group are from reputable sources and are from vetted sources. So we have high confidence in that aspect.
Well,
But
can
we
I
aren't
follow
too
up?
prescriptive, though, as far as what people should talk about. It's really got to come from them and what's authentic and real for them.
But let me follow up, and maybe Pat would have answered this, but you know what your audience is. Let's say it's a progressive audience and so forth. So you got to make decisions about what do they want to hear, but sometimes there's things that you might want to put up that they might not want to hear, but should hear. Uh, and that's kind of an open-ended question, but I think that's a really important thing because people come back and read Barry and Chuck because they've been reading them for a long time, and you know what the trust level is. That's
Mhm.
not to say you're not trusted, but you see my point. You're dealing with a lot of people that you don't really know what the basis is for which they're from which they're writing. And thank you for your response, but I'm still concerned about it.
Okay,
Thanks, Bryce.
thank you.
Liz, is there a policy about responding to bots and sort of snarky comments and that sort of thing? Do you encourage your creators not to engage in some of those things, or do you have a policy?
So I will be the first to admit sometimes my demon wins and I will respond to terrible comments with something snarky. Unfortunately, I am sassy and accurate. So sometimes that wins. But I always encourage people to ignore terrible comments unless there's a way that you can, in a concise and effective manner, debunk that misinformation in a good way. So if there is a bot or an account acting in bad faith, commenting something like, oh, you're lying about this. I had someone telling me that I was lying about something to do with Roe v. Wade being overturned. That's an opportunity to correct that. If it's something asked in good faith, I would say that's a definite opportunity to correct that. If someone is acting in bad faith or asking questions in a disingenuous way, you are free to ignore, to block if you need to. I have settings on my accounts where certain words, slurs, basically, or words that I know are being thrown in a negative way, I can filter those out so that they don't even post on my account, which is helpful too. So there is a lot of negative activity out there on the internet. I have developed a thick skin, but I'm always happy to advise other people on how to address those.
Have you ever felt your personal safeties in jeopardy?
No.
Okay.
No, thankfully. I mean, there are some people who will say negative things, do negative things, but I also do a good job of protecting myself. I ensure that none of my personal information is out there as far as my address or how to contact me beyond an email or a DM. I ensure I don't post pictures of my nieces and nephews and things like that. Like, I really protect my personal life versus my public life as Liz from Iowa, which I think is a good practice for anybody who wants to protect that part of themselves and also their safety.
What kind of counsel do you get about libel? And how are there things that you're warned against in terms of getting sued?
I mean, if I can't back something up with factual information, I'm not going to put it out there, or I'm going to use the word allegedly, or I'm going to say according to this report and cite a source. And I encourage others to do that as well. We're not just putting information out there that's hearsay. We're not putting information that we read on a Reddit post without saying, hey, I only read this on a Reddit post, but here's what this said. Protecting ourselves by giving that disclaimer. I also have insurance. I am a one-woman LLC, so I do have that insurance and I'm protected in that way. But I always say go with your gut. Don't put anything out there that can come back to bite you or that can target somebody personally that you don't want coming back on you.
So, where do you see this going in this cycle? Let's talk about this election cycle. If you could have a magic wand, how many Creator Corps people would you have in Iowa? How many times would they post? What's overly saturated? What's just right? All of those things I don't have the answer to.
I don't think there's such a thing as oversaturation as we lead up to November 2026. We need to get messaging in front of everybody. And in an ideal world, we would have 90 to 100 Iowans who are regularly posting content, whether that's twice a week, whether it's every day, it's up to them. But a substantial group of Iowans across the state. We don't want just people in Iowa City, Des Moines, and Cedar Rapids posting. We need people in Grinnell, Sioux City. We need people in Carroll County. We need people in Scott County and Lynn County. Like, we need a diverse group of Iowans all speaking on the topics that are affecting Iowans. So whether that is general information on, hey, there's an election coming up, you should check your status and get to the polls, or whether it's informing people that, hey, Rob Sand is coming around. If you want to hear from him and ask him a question at his town hall, here's an opportunity for you to engage. So really the point of having so many messengers who are developing trust with their audiences and in their communities is to continually encourage in-person action and online action, whether that's sharing information digitally with people, whether it's having conversations in real life, whether it's showing up at a No Kings rally or creating community with the Indivisible groups or showing up at an Iowa Immigrant Movement for Justice event. Like, there are real action steps that can take place once we are able to reach people with authentic, good information and then give them the encouragement to do something about what they're hearing. So in an ideal world, everyone is moving in one direction. We're all pushing for a more informed and compassionate Iowa. I mean, that's my take anyway. I think we have a little bit of a compassion gap for one another these days. But in an ideal world, by November, people are informed on the issues and willing to act and feel like they are empowered to act.
Okay. Well, Liz, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Very excited about what you're doing. And by golly, I'm gonna make myself get on TikTok.
Please
I'll find you. I'll follow you. Maybe I'll even, let's see, what can I do? Can I take a clip from this conversation and upload it?
You sure can. Yeah, the good thing about any video content is that you can post it across whatever platform you desire. So that's the great thing about this.
Are there character limits or second limits?
I think on TikTok you can post something up to 10 minutes long, but people usually prefer their information in chunks of 2 minutes or less.
Yeah, great. All right, well, you've inspired me. I'm gonna do it. Thanks.
Yes, please do. And thanks for having us. This was a great gathering. I'm so happy to be here and to hear from you.
Well, this is great. We usually get anywhere from 20 to 50 on the call, and then I upload it into a podcast, and it's viewed by about 5,000. So that's a pretty good consistent number, and mostly Iowans, many influencers, but it does skew older. So I love to see what you're doing, and here we are doing it.
Here we are. Thank you. And everybody stay cool where you are today. I just went outside and my glasses fogged up right away. So take care out there.
Thanks so much, Liz. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.